chance to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, welcome to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. Today we're going to talk about the NFL draft, talk about what the Saints did, and our thoughts on that. So I think it was overall, we're all pretty satisfied with the draft, right?
Yeah. It was one where I wasn't keeping up with every single pick on Saturday due to, family obligations. And I say Saturday because obviously we had time to talk about Fuaga, kind of knew that type of pick was coming. The second pick with Kool-Aid was, I said it in our preview, but I said it about the first round pick. I said my hot take would be that they take a cornerback.
Yeah, you did say that.
And so they did that in the second round. They traded up to get him. So I liked what they did with the first two picks. I do, and I think you could argue you could have gone wide receiver with the second round pick, but a lot of the guys that you and I both liked did go before that pick.
Man, there was a run at the end of the first round leading into the beginning of the second where they were gone.
I hated that run because you also knew, even though the first round was over, the first pick of the second round was going to be a receiver because the Bills were in that spot. Of course, it was the guy we wanted.
Yep.
But looking back at all the picks after, having a chance to review, I think they spoke to value, number one, and you look at all these guys, the day three picks for us, they all they played a lot, they have a lot of starts, and they seem to be good value for what they bring. It's not a lot of question marks, in my opinion, except maybe the last two guys.
Yeah, I think they were all probably projected higher than we got them, and I think that's kind of been one of our Achilles' heels in drafts, kind of drafting guys earlier than the consensus. Ruiz comes to mind.
Rick Leonard.
Yeah. There's been many, and most of them haven't worked out. So changing it up a little. I think we've all talked on the side about, did Loomis step back and let Ireland do more of this decision making? Whatever it was, I don't know. It looked a little different.
Yeah.
I think we have to temper expectations a little bit with these 5th to 7th round picks and understand that if we hit one of those, you hit a home run.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good stories. The Rattler stuff, the OT in the 7th round. A lot of like people are super pumped about some of these picks, like we always do.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if one of them works out, you hit a home run in that spot. The part we certainly don't want to miss on is those first two picks. And
yeah, you can't miss on those.
I think because we have a lot, and there's a lot of optimism that we took a different type of player this time. Someone who, like Corey said, played a ton, was very successful, all Americans, all SEC.
Yep.
Different kind of model than we've gone with in the past with the potential we seem to draft a lot. And that was refreshing to me. Kind of getting more established players. Maybe the ceiling isn't through the moon, but both these players project as potential Pro Bowlers, I think, in almost everyone's mind.
Yeah, I like what you just said, about their ceiling might not be as high, but the floor is much, much higher than what we've done in the past. The other thing, value. I think you both said the word value, and that's what stuck out to me about this draft. It just felt like every pick we made was projected to go a round higher or two than they did go, which is always a good sign. And like we already referenced, Rick Leonard, Cesar Ruiz, we'll add Peyton Turner to that mix, Marcus Davenport. Like nobody projected those guys to go as high as they did, and that's why this draft did feel different. It felt like a Jeff Ireland draft. Yeah. It didn't feel like a Mickey Loomis draft.
Yeah. They let it come to them this time rather than panic and draft a guy too soon.
That was the best. That was the most exciting part about the draft to me, was that, like you said, they let the draft come to them. They didn't throw away any future picks at all. For the first time in a long time, we have, I say that, and we're missing our 7th round pick because it was part of the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade with the Eagles.
But nothing
but nothing higher than
but nothing from this draft put a future in jeopardy.
Right. Which is, that to me is the most encouraging thing. You know, they sat there, they exercised patience. You know, they didn't force anything, they didn't panic. You know, as much as we all wanted Brock Bowers, I was firmly against trading up. Like, I did not want to give up, you know, a first round pick from 2025 or a second round pick or even a third. Let the board come to you. You know, Fuaga looks like a cornerstone piece. He's got that mentality. Dude, he's Samoan. I mean, Nick and I have talked about this offline all the time.
Hey,
you know,
you were clear in your preview, that you wanted, you said, give me one of the Polynesian guys.
exactly, man. Those guys are built for offensive line and defensive line.
Yeah. Well, I think the culture, I mean, I can't.
Shout out to Roman Reigns. We got a bloodline member here.
Yeah. I saw a lot of bloodline memes, and I had to figure that part out on my own.
Somebody educate me, please.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, obviously I can't speak with any authority on the Samoan culture, but it does seem to me when you see a lot of these guys, there's like a maturity, a sense of purpose behind them, just with I don't know, the sense of drive behind that culture, family driven.
That's it right there. It's family driven, they're focused.
Bigger than themselves, you know.
They're big, dude.
Well, they are big. They are big, but and you saw all of Fuaga's family behind him when he got picked, and he's watching it in Hawaii.
I mean, the guy's got Samoa tattooed on his fat stomach, and it's beautiful. I was firing these pictures to Nick, you know, right after we picked him. You know, we had a couple of drinks at that point. I'm just shooting him picture after picture, and it's him basically with like a crop top on. He's got Samoa tattooed on his stomach.
It was from the combine.
From the combine. He looks kind of awkward running, which is fine because he's not going to be running 40 yards.
Yeah,
in a
offensive
game.
lineman running the 40 is one of the most ridiculous things.
You just got to respect the crop top, though. Like,
and that haircut.
Let's show it off.
Bro, that haircut he has. I mean, come on. That dude's going to maul some people.
It's a Luke. But no, I like the pick. I've had my grieving period about not getting Brock and let myself dive into the speculation of how high he was on our draft board or who would have gotten picked or not picked. You know, because you bring up a good point. Like even if we had him higher than other people, we could have still made the choice that
Nick said it. We could have gone up a pick if we really wanted to.
Right. This is the same thing as before, just in the past. If they really wanted to, if they felt Bowers was that much of a, gap in like historical talent, they would have gone up the pick.
Right.
Because Oakland would have traded that pick. There's no doubt. Oakland lost out on the quarterbacks. They in their mind took the best player available, probably.
Which he probably was.
He probably was. O-line wasn't one of their main needs, so they weren't going to take Fuaga. They were going to take Bowers. But even if they had, so if we really wanted him or thought he was like, a generational talent, like some people think, like we think, quite honestly, they would have done it. With that said, the most glaring need by such a wide margin is offensive line. And if you had him ranked anywhere near Bowers,
you had to take him.
Still take him over Bowers because we've been decimated from an offensive line that wasn't even good last year.
Yeah. I mean, I still go back and forth. Well, not back and forth. I mean, I will still... My stance doesn't matter now because we took him. But I still would have been good with or chosen to take Bowers over him because of the playmaking ability of Bowers.
And look, for the record, I would have too.
Who would have been available at 45 and given Kubiak's history of being able to do more with less on the offensive line. But that said, that doesn't matter now.
Well, hold on. We say his history. He was only with San Francisco that one year. So San Francisco is the team that has the history of doing more with less with offensive linemen.
That's true, but the scheme.
Yeah, but it's not to say he's bringing Kyle Shanahan's scheme with him. You know what I mean? By all accounts, it looks like it's going to be a blend of the Gary Kubiak system, focused on running the ball and all that. So
I'm just saying, we lost at the moment. We're down 3 starters.
No, we need it. We're in desperate need of it. Yeah, absolutely.
If you have those players, if it's close, I don't see how you don't.
Well, the difference between a Fuaga or any OL you would have picked at 14 versus anyone you would have got at 45 is the certainty or seeming certainty of their ability to pan out in the future. I mean, Fuaga seems like, it's his game to lose in terms of becoming a perennial.
I think that's the only question.
First-rate starter, potential All-Pro. versus a guy you get at 45. You're saying things like he's got the tools,
right?
And if put in the right environment, then he should pan out, and he has the ability to be a long-time starter. Whereas 14, you're like, this dude's gonna start. This dude's gonna make a Pro Bowl.
With his track record, his college track record. That's a starter.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not a pending situation. Obviously, these are vastly different things. He's
Right.
going to start. The question is, does he become great, or is he just a serviceable starter?
Like,
right.
Like we talk about control your own destiny. He controls his destiny in that respect.
I think his floor is very good.
Yeah,
whereas Penning's floor obviously is below the basement.
It would seem at this point, again, we haven't seen a single rep of him in the offense he's going into, but at this point, it would seem like his floor is dependable starter.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
I'm saying.
Exactly. And let's go ahead and say this. Let's have the funeral for the Brock Bowers non-pick. Let's just go ahead and have it now, because we'll leave the looking back and trying to pick apart and doing all the speculation to other podcasts. I want to deal in what happened and what didn't happen.
I'm fine with that. I've had my own.
Look, we all wanted him. We all think he was the best player.
I said on our text, when I kept firing off things about him, I said, I'm going to take this on my own time. And I did. I've processed it. I'm good with it.
I'm just happy we didn't pass on him. See, it's like Mahomes. We didn't pass on Mahomes. We didn't have a chance to pick him. So I'm tired of people pushing that narrative. I was one of the people that wanted him, but we didn't pass on him.
Right.
And I did not want to be in the situation where Bowers was sitting there and Fuaga's sitting there, and then I'm going to resent Fuaga for the rest of time if they pick him over Bowers.
Yeah.
That's why I told you we were together for the draft.
You were.
When the Raiders were up, I'm like, pick Bowers, just pick him, just get him off the board. I don't want this, and they did, because I did not want this.
But if they'd have picked Fuaga, you would have wanted Bowers.
No, I would have wanted Bowers no matter what, but then it would have killed me when we would have passed on him for
if
lot
he was
two.
available.
If he's available and we pass on him, I would have lost my mind.
Correct. The grieving about the fact that we just couldn't get him because he went before us is 100% different than what I would have felt if we passed on him. Just totally night and day there. Now,
they must have had him high on the board to having a first round. He was a first round, right? Wasn't my first round pick?
Who's that?
Their starting tight end.
Raiders. Mayer. Mayer was a projected first round pick last year.
Last year. To take him, they must have had him crazy.
They probably had him as the best player on their
I think
board.
some teams had Bowers in their top 5 of overall players. The Raiders GM had a quote just saying, look, I mean, he's the best player that we had. And sure, we drafted a tight end last year. We love what he does. And we love what Brock brings to the table. There's no rule against us being able to play 2 tight ends.
Exactly. Look at the Patriots when they had Aaron Hernandez and Gronk.
Yeah.
And they were both eating.
Very difficult to defend that because nobody does it. So it makes it very difficult.
And look, when you got a young quarterback like Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, whoever ends up starting, it's great to have 2 great safety valves at tight end.
Yeah. So that worked and would have worked for us, but we got our guy. We got the right guy. I'm more than good with it. I'm happy about it. I'm excited about it. I think moving into what we did the rest of the draft, like y'all talked about, the fact that we did not trade away any future picks has to be the biggest win of this draft.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Moreover, whatever the accolades that any of the draft pick actual players could receive in their careers, the biggest win out of this draft is that we did not trade future assets.
Yeah, and let me say one more thing about Fuaga, and then we can move on to Kool-Aid. But as far as Fuaga goes, I see him, and let me know if you guys feel differently. I feel like he goes immediately into the right tackle spot. You don't try him on the left side at all. You put him on the right side. You give Penning another chance on the left side.
Yeah.
And then you let, what's his name, Oli, I don't even know how to say his name, the guy we got from the Vikings. Udo.
Yeah.
Oli Udo. You get him, you let him fight it out with maybe Saldiveri for that left guard spot. But to me, Fuaga, without question, is written in Sharpie on the right side right now.
Yeah, you got to give Penning another shot at left tackle, which sounds crazy considering how bad he was last year. But, I mean, what you have invested in him, you at least have to give it another shot. Fuaga being a right tackle in college, an All-American at right tackle, meaning
leave him there.
Like by pretty much every association, All-American, because there's a bunch of different kind of All-Americans.
There's videos
now.
of him stonewalling Latu, like throwing him out the club.
And then saw an interview where Latu at the Senior Bowl was asked who was the hardest guy you had to face during your college career, and he said Fuaga without even hesitating. And then when you look at the UCLA Oregon State game, I didn't watch the game, but the reports from it was that like Latu just was nowhere to be seen. Like he was not heard from in that game thanks to Taliesin Fuaga.
Yeah.
I tried to say his full name there. It was kind of difficult, but
They got long names.
we're gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
But
we still have a big
We still have a whole.
challenge with the offensive line.
well, I was
Like,
going to say, so like if Penning doesn't work out, one thing I was going to say, if he doesn't work out, then you go to the whack-a-mole, like begrudgingly.
You've got to go sign Andrews Pete right now. Like, well, June
do.
1st. You got to go sign him or someone else.
I go sign Becton and Pete.
Yeah, you've got to. You've got to bring competition for that spot. Right now, there is no answer for left tackle if Penning's not ready.
No,
There's
'cause-
nothing.
Yeah.
There's no answer.
Because Penning's not
Well,
an answer.
Oli
and
Udoh would probably slot in.
I
But
guess.
he's the Swiss Army knife, like the James Hurst. That's what he was for the Vikings. So
Yeah.
We don't
kinda
want
play
that.
everywhere.
I can tell.
but it's like, but that's not like your fix. You know, I think like to Nick's point, it's Penning isn't an answer. He's a possibility. And last year we were kind of like, you know, maybe I've blocked out the camp memories, but it's kind of, I don't think anybody was really bemoaning him starting at left tackle during training camp. So, you
No.
know, you could have a guy getting decent reps, looking okay during camp. You're not going to know until the ball snapped on week 1.
I think the new offensive coaching staff is going to really benefit Penning.
There should be at least some improvement.
The scheme's going to change. You know what I mean? So
If
he
there
should
isn't,
be-
then you know you've got a complete dud of a player.
If it's me, I'm signing Mekhi Becton, who was a top 10 pick.
Well, he just got signed. I saw.
Did he?
Yeah. Someone, I think Ryan tweeted it saying, come home, Pete.
You're right. Eagles, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's out. So
Damn,
now
that just happened.
you really need Pete to come through or someone of the same caliber. But, yeah.
I mean, he held it together last year, so I don't understand what we're waiting for with the current situation.
It's the June 1st to win
I
a
know,
salary. That's what they're waiting on.
But
Or May 1st. Whatever
just give
it
us a
is, yeah.
leak. Give us something.
I mean, I guess if Pete's agreed to this and all that, then great. But you know, we heard so much about Becton, and look where we're at.
Yeah.
I just, if we go in like this, I'm nervous as hell. I was way more confident last year than I am right now, even with Fuaga. I mean, losing Ramczyk, none of us liked Hurst, but he was a starter.
Yeah.
Losing Pete, who, you know, Max and I liked more than Corey, but then he showed out at left tackle.
Yeah.
We're in a worse spot than we were last year, even using our first-round pick. So
Right.
I worry about that a lot, and was hoping we could have got something else in before the 7th in that position. I understand why we didn't. We got a lot of value. We got a receiver. We all wanted a bigger receiver, I think.
Yeah.
We got that addressed. Rattler must have been much higher on our board where we just couldn't pass on him. I understand that at that spot. So it all makes sense, but we're still left with the problem that needs to be addressed.
I mean, you couldn't draft 2 guys with 1 pick. You know, that's one of the rules of the NFL draft.
Well, there's a
um,
real scenario where the next first-round pick in 2025 is a left tackle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
100%. I mean, right. You'd have loved to say we came out of the draft and we feel good about our offensive line, but you can only draft one first rounder.
Right.
And there's only, you know, the first round is the only place you're going to get an offensive lineman that makes you feel like, you know, the second you draft him, okay, now I can put that dude in the starting lineup on our line.
Right.
You know,
the one thing
so-
I'll say is 3 of the positions are obviously McCoy and Ruiz are still very young, and Fuaga's young.
I feel good about the right side.
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel whether you like Ruiz or not, whether you think McCoy's a
McCoy's
all-pro
good,
talent
yeah.
or a good player, doesn't really matter. He's
Yeah.
he's an anchor, and then Fuaga, you think, you know, we feel pretty confident about that, but your whole left side, your
Yeah.
blind side is
now we're going
is a
back to
scary
what I
spot.
said before last season. Harvey Dent.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's for sure that now.
Now it really is. Because that left side looks pretty rough. Now if Saldiveri steps up and becomes a solid starter,
Yeah.
and if Penning just becomes serviceable, then I
Right.
feel good.
Just serviceable, which he
Just be a starter. Just be Ruiz. All we
don't
need
get
you to
killed.
be is be Cesar Ruiz. Ruiz sucked for his first 2 years, and then he took a step. We
Right.
need Penning to do the same thing.
yeah, hopefully he can do that.
Yeah. But let's move on to the second-round pick, Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yep. You know, so this is the one pick, which is crazy to say it, the one pick of this draft where we traded up. We didn't trade up multiple times. This was the only time. And giving up a 5th-round pick to do it, you know, the second round.
Fifth and a sixth.
5th and a 6th to do it is worth it to me.
Real
You know,
quick though,
yeah.
why why do we always give up more than the table? It seems like we always give up more than
Like,
the points.
you mean
Because
like-
we were talking about this. The
Well,
nerd now.
The
I
points
get-
were pretty even on it, though, from what I read.
I think the points were fine. Nick,
I don't mind it.
Nick / at Jason_OTC on Twitter thought that the points were slightly imbalanced, that we could have got them with less than what we gave them. But I think, and Mickey spoke to this in his pre-draft press conference where he's like, look, first and second round trades, when you get back in like the fourth and fifth and you're talking about trading up within the fifth or trading up within the fourth, then things are pretty expected in terms of what kind of compensation you're going to give. But especially in the first round and then even into the second round, what you end up giving up to move up to the spot you think you need to move up to kind of ebbs and flows with the situation. It's just like, what are you going to be able to get out of the other side? And I think that's what played out. So the fact that we didn't give up a whole lot more than what
It's not a huge haul. I agree
the
with
points
that.
would have said.
It's even points.
It's good.
Close to even.
And what I like the most about this particular trade up, unlike trade ups in the past, we've traded up in the past and said we didn't have to do that. Or we've been like, why didn't we do that? There's no reason to do that. We would have gotten that guy later, or we didn't need that position. In this case, we traded up to get a cornerback right after a cornerback had gone, and immediately after us, 2 cornerbacks got taken.
Yeah,
So
there
it
was a
shows you.
run.
It shows you that.
No, yeah, and that part's 100% true.
Yeah.
Also, before the whole pre-draft and everything, all the workouts and everything went down, I believe he was the top-ranked corner before we got into the whole thing.
Yeah, all during the season, he was projected top 20 pick, on everyone's board, whether it was Mel Kiper, Matt Miller, Daniel Jeremiah, whoever. He was projected top 20 in all of these mocks.
He was like the shoe
all season. He was an All-American.
Yeah.
But he gets to the combine, and they found out he had a Jones fracture in
Yeah.
his foot. He still ran a 4.43, which speed isn't his thing. It's not like he's a speed demon, but he's obviously fast enough if you're running that time with a Jones fracture. So, look, to me, it's a no-brainer. They anticipated the run on corners. Cooper DeJean went first.
Right.
We moved up, got Kool-Aid, and then, like Corey said, the next 2 were corners. So they anticipated the run on corners coming. They went up and got their guy.
Yeah.
And another thing about this draft, it was widely said that this draft was weaker overall. Like they said, once you got to about the end of the 4th round, all these guys are kind of undrafted free agents. They're all in that same range from like the 5th round to the undrafted free agents. So
Yeah.
go get the guys in the top 4 rounds at that point. So if you see someone you really want, go get them. He was supposed to be a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, I agree.
You
That's why
yeah.
trading up, if you're going up to get someone who's clearly dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd have gotten picked 20th, even with the current, no one would have said anything.
Nobody would say anything.
Yeah, I mean, you got an All-American cornerback from Alabama who's coached by Nick Saban in the 2nd round.
Saban was gushing about him.
Yeah, and the thing I like the most is besides trading up for good reason, is the fit for the defense we play. It's not a fit as to whether or not he's going to start over Alante or is he going to start over a Debo. Like, that's not the question. Like DA has said multiple times, I texted y'all this on Saturday, it's not a pick to say we're replacing Marshawn. It gives them the ability to if they want. Marshawn's going to cost too much, but
It
it's
also
really
gives
a
them the
pick.
ability not to sign a Debo.
Yeah,
and
it's
we
a
need
pick
to consider that.
And that's I think that's a bigger play. But even still, it goes into DA's philosophy you can't ever have too many cornerbacks. And he fits within this defense because he plays, as they said, pressed man. I don't profess to be a defensive guru expert, but you can tell the difference between a guy that does better playing 8 yards off the ball versus a guy that plays up in a receiver's face. And so he does that well. And then in his post-draft interview with the Saints media, they asked him the question. They said, hey, whoever, I don't know who asked it, but kudos to them because they said straight up, hey, some of the knocks on you are that you don't seem to be as aggressive as some other quarterbacks. Like, we don't see you always flying up and popping guys and taking chances and stuff like that. Do you have any response to that? And he was like, well, I play cornerback the right way.
He's a safe corner.
He's like, for all those plays, you might see a guy jump a route, get an interception, jump in, get a TFL. They're not showing you the plays where that guy's getting burned because he was out of position. He's like, I make sure that I'm in position. I don't give up the big play.
Which is why Saban loves him.
Yeah, and why we should. I like that mentality about him.
I love the pick. Yeah. And I'll say this, this was a historically strong offensive draft.
Yep.
You know, what was it, the first
It's a
14?
record.
Yeah.
It was a record for the first round.
Right. There were
Yeah.
more offensive players picked in the first round than in any year prior. So when your first defensive player doesn't go into, 15? It was Latu? That was the first defensive
Yep.
player pick?
Yep.
So, I mean, look it up. You got your phone out. Look and see what number of what was he, like the 10th defensive player picked? I mean, what was he? Check and see. Because they all got pushed down the board because of the offensive linemen. I'm not the offensive players. And then when that run on wide receivers went at the end of the first round, leading into the second round, that pushed defensive players down even further.
Yeah.
So he's probably the 9th or 10th defensive player to go.
Yeah.
In the draft, which, he should have been a first rounder. The kid was a 5-star recruit coming out, started at Alabama all 3 years. He's fucking awesome. So I'm excited about that pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, he didn't really have any experience playing in the slot, so it's going to be interesting to see do they put him in on the outside and leave Alante in the slot, or where are they going
Well,
with it?
DA
I'm
did
sure
say
they'll try to
we're
cross-train
going to
him.
at least train him. I mean,
Yeah.
at least he said that. He wasn't even trying to hide that. He goes, yeah, we're definitely going to give him reps in the slot. And the good thing about a guy from a Saban defensive system versus someone coming from a lesser coached university is that
14.
he's
He was the 14th,
seen
okay.
he's seen all kind of different things. Someone again in the media interview this. So what's it like being a defensive back for Coach Saban? He's like, you got to know it all. You got to know every kind of look. It's not like we just stick to one scheme and run that scheme. And he's like, we know all the different looks, many different defenses that we could possibly run.
Another underrated aspect of the pick is with the new kickoff rules. They're talking
Yeah.
about you're probably going to have 2 returners back there.
And he's got the return
he's
ability.
he's a really accomplished returner too, so that gives it a little extra added value. But let's move on to, I guess, the real talking point, the first of the 3 fifth-round picks, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah. We'll
We'll let you go first on this
Yeah.
one since you were initially not thrilled
Well,
or
yeah,
you didn't
'cause-
understand it.
Right. I mean, like we said, I wasn't keeping up with everybody who had been picked, so I'm out at the Zurich Classic with my beautiful daughters, introducing them to the game of golf, watching your now champion, Rory McIlroy, the Zurich Classic, and having a good time. But I wasn't plugged into the ESPN app, and you texted, we drafted Rattler, and at first I'm like, ugh, damn it, we did it again. Like, we needed to get somebody else at a, we've only drafted 3 players to this point. We have so many other needs. There was probably a better receiver we could have gotten or offensive lineman that fit our mold. And here we are drafting a guy who, I'm not sold on as being a franchise guy, or I wasn't very high on, when I watched him play against my team, in that one isolated game where
They were
South Carolina
overmatched.
played Georgia. And he was overmatched. His offensive line got obliterated. And, if you were a casual observer of Spencer Rattler this year, you probably only saw like a couple of flashes and then otherwise him getting teed off on because he had nobody blocking for him. So if you're a casual observer, there's not a whole lot that you're going to be excited about. But if you did what I did and you look at who else we could have taken instead of him, there really wasn't very many people that moved the needle at all, for one. And then if you look at his film and look at what people that know what they're talking about are saying about him, then there's a lot of upside, which is what you want out of a QB pick in the 5th round. I would have been more upset if we took him at like the 3rd round or traded up, like got rid of the rest of our picks to go get him. We didn't do that. So, overall, I'm good with it.
Yeah, it was funny. We were leaving Hanson's. Shout out. Hanson's, best place in the city. But, we're in the car and listening to the draft coverage on WWL. And they come on, I think it was Mike Detillier, and he's like, all right, a quarterback is coming off the board to the Saints. And at that point, I'm like, oh, it's got to be Michael Pratt.
Yeah.
And they said Rattler, and immediately I'm like, fuck, I like this pick. I'm like, there's more upside with Rattler than there is with Pratt.
Yeah.
And then I was texting with Nick, and, I honestly was expecting him to be like, this is a stupid pick. I don't like it. And he was like, I'm good with that pick. I like it. You take a chance there. It's fine.
Yeah.
And it's this kid was supposed to be a first-round pick, and some people had him as a top 5 pick a couple years ago when he was still at Oklahoma. Like, he has that kind of arm talent. Like, I would argue that in this draft, after Caleb Williams and probably Drake May, Spencer Rattler's in that trio. He's in that cloud of arm talent.
Yeah.
You know, his arm's more talented than Bo Nix, than McCarthy. You know, Penix can really spin it, so he's probably in that same.
Yeah, some have
same
said Penix
cloud
has
too.
the best arm talent of all of the quarterbacks, but
I would say Caleb. I mean,
but,
Caleb.
I mean,
can,
without getting into it.
yeah, without getting into that, but
yeah.
they're all in that same tier.
Yeah.
My point is, Rattler's in that same tier.
Yeah, natural.
And you got him in
arm-
the
I mean, he
fifth
was
round.
number one pocket passer coming out in high school too.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
there's
So
another
Oklahoma.
thing about watching his tape that I like with regard to his arm talent. It's one thing to have a strong arm. It's another thing to have a quick release. You
got
see
it.
so many people in the NFL or in the pre-draft process who can throw the ball a mile. Like Joe Milton, sure, he can throw it through the gym. But how long does it take the ball to get from the starting position to the release position? With Rattler, when you watch his throws, if you're looking only for his release, that ball comes out quick. And it goes far when it comes out quick.
I probably watched a few too many South Carolina games this year. I kept betting on Xavier Legette, prop bets, and he won me a good amount of money this year. But
sure.
Rattler kept popping. He kept flashing. He was getting the shit kicked out of him behind that offensive line. That offensive line, and look, that's going to prepare him to play for us because our offensive line looks just like his offensive line at South Carolina.
I mean, I was about to say, like, he's a lot of these pro QBs that get so highly rated, they play behind amazing offensive linemen.
Carson Beck.
Like we talk about Carson Beck. That dude rarely ever had a dirty jersey. He just came out clean, sparkling clean every game. And the same thing probably with, I guess, with Penix and McCarthy. But
sure.
there's
The
definite
same.
value to having gotten your lumps. But he's going to come in and it's easier to hit from the fairway when you've hit it from the bushes.
The best way to put it is he's faced adversity.
Yeah.
Whether it's the offensive line, whether it's losing his job and having to transfer, whether it's the results of the Netflix show that's been very well documented over the last couple of days.
Been through it.
He's been through it, and look, he sounds a lot more mature now. Like, listen, I was very interested to hear his interview after getting drafted. And I listened to all of the players' interviews yesterday, and he sounded way better than the last time I heard him give an interview.
Yeah.
Which was when he's getting to Oklahoma and, that point, hot shot, 5-star, never seen any adversity in his life and just thought he was going to walk right into the first pick of the draft.
Yeah, I think the Spencer
Almost
Rattler.
Because might have if he could have gone out after that first.
Well, it's like I
starting
said,
year.
there's the casual observer, and before looking at Spencer Rattler through the lens of him being on our team, I'm not even going there yet to say, like, I think the talk of, like, this guy could replace Derek Carr, like,
It's premature.
let's give that a breath, But looking at him through the lens of him now being a Saints player is totally different than how I previously looked at Spencer Rattler. Because, it was more of just, like, my perception of him. And the perception of him, I didn't even watch the Netflix series, but it was a perception of that freshman at Oklahoma who knows he's good and thinks he's good and for the most part kind of plays like it, but then has some shakiness. And then it's the guy
Here's the
who's
thing.
disgruntled because Caleb comes in and like, so
Do
if
you
it's,
think Caleb isn't a lot like that?
yeah, of course he is. That's
Of course
why
he is.
that's why I
Right.
wasn't in love with him, even as
Right.
like if we were the Bears, it'd be like
The
you gotta
funniest
take
thing,
him,
though,
but yeah.
I remember sending Nick a clip of Rattler when I want to say he was he was redshirting, and they had him on the sideline, and he's just making all these Mahomes-like throws. All the strange arm angles, everything, just
off platform.
off platform, but just incredible arm talent throws.
Yeah.
And I remember sending it to you, and you were rightfully were like, well, I mean, let's see if he does it in the games. He hadn't done shit yet.
Right.
And then 5 years later,
Yeah.
he's on our team. But the thing is, that still sticks out to me. The kid's arm talent is off the charts.
And the good thing about that is that I think unlike Caleb Williams, who seemed to me when I watched his tape, I'm not saying Rattler's better than Williams. This isn't that. But you see guys like Williams who know they can do that kind of shit, like go out of their way to do it, almost like they're trying to do it on every play. Where Rattler at South Carolina, it's like if he had a pocket that he could step up into and make a normal delivery, he would make the normal delivery.
Well, that's what-
but he had the tools in his tool chest to do it if he had to do it.
He wants to play on schedule out of the pocket.
Yes.
Yeah. Caleb's
Sandlot
always
football.
he's always looking to get out. He's always looking and look.
He's never had to do anything else.
Caleb's trying to hit the grand slam on every single play.
Yeah.
And I feel like Rattler's trying to go through his progressions and
Right.
trying to do it the right way.
Because Rattler's
but
been in, he already had his run through with the Lincoln Riley offense. He already had the situation where he had an all-star offensive lineman in front of him in Oklahoma where he had the freedom to just sit back and throw it on a 5-step drop at the end of the drop. Or he's like, if I want to go dick around and wait for the guy to go 70 yards down the field, I can do that. Caleb got to do that every time. Now Rattler has already had those growing pains to know that, like, it's much better to just make the pocket pass if you can.
Yeah.
But
I think, we also have to temper our expectations.
Yeah,
There's a reason he was there in the 5th. At the quarterback position, we talk about it all the time. We've mentioned it, on here multiple times. Until you have a for sure answer, you just keep firing at it.
Keep getting them.
And when someone drops that you liked and he's there, you take a shot.
Keep swinging.
Like I said earlier, I would have loved to see more offensive line picks, but if they had him as a 3rd-round grade or a 2nd-round grade, because some people did, and he's there, I'm all for taking him. That position is worth its weight in gold. This isn't using the 8th pick on a backup quarterback. This is a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
And who might you be talking about?
Right.
Yes, the Falcons.
Yeah. I mean, they have to hit on that pick. I'm going to temper my shit talk on the Falcons. I mean, well, the memes have been amazing, and I had my fun with them, but...
And warranted. Let's be honest.
If Cousins...
Their draft was atrocious.
Their draft was terrible, but...
I know people are trying to justify it, saying, like, I see the vision, but the reality is, if Cousins is worth that 100 whatever million, Penix isn't going to see the field for 2 years at least. He's already 24.
This is the only thing. You sign Cousins, you think you're ready to win right now. There's
Yes.
no other reason to sign Cousins.
None.
If you have the 8th pick, that is an immediate contributor. So you decided to play for the future right after not are playing for right now.
You have to
That's
get-
what makes no sense. If they wouldn't have signed Cousins and drafted,
Then it's a great pick at that
great
point.
pick.
Because he's
Right.
probably the most pro-ready since
Yeah.
he was in college
And
for 6 years.
Love him as a player. We both did, I
Yeah.
think. The injuries are a concern, but
It makes
picking him at
sense.
8, I'm fine with. Picking him at 8 when you just signed an expensive quarterback doesn't seem like you know what you're doing.
It's the number 8. Yeah, it makes sense to try to give yourself the Jordan Love scenario, but pick number 8 is not the place where you can
You
make
do that
happen.
at 28.
Exactly.
You don't do that.
It's
So-
picking the 20s. And
Right.
and Rodgers was what? 21st?
Yeah.
They keep referencing the Packers. The Packers didn't waste a top 8 pick. They
Yeah.
took a
Yeah.
late first-round pick when they were in a good situation. That's a different player than a top
They
8
did
pick.
what surprisingly we did this year and let the draft come to them. So so again, back to Rattler.
Real quick on that, though, did you see the Breeze, the story? A little bit more came out on the Mahomes thing. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember who was posting it. And they were talking about it, and they hadn't told Breeze they were thinking about drafting Mahomes if he was there. And when they told him, like, hey, there's a chance we take this Texas Tech kid, he's like, I get it. Got a plan for the future. That's what Breeze told him. No hindrance whatsoever. No Rodgers freak out. No nothing.
Yeah.
Breeze is just like,
And-
I understand.
And
Like,
key difference from what came out about Penix, and again, there's only so much we never know, but they didn't tell Cousins.
Yeah.
And they asked Morris and Fontenot when they were like at the press stand, did you talk to Cousins? And they were just kind of looked at each other like,
why would we do that? Like,
no, we did not talk to our starting quarterback about this.
Yeah.
and I think that's the only thing that's just mind-boggling because he went there because he thought they were ready to win and were missing a quarterback. And then you go and throw away one of the 8 best players in the draft, potentially. Not Penix may be one of the 8 best, but something that could help the team. Defensively, they are not going to be great this year. And they did nothing to address it. It's crazy.
That team is in perfect position to win the division this year, and if they would have picked a frontline player with that 8th pick instead of Penix, I think they run away with the division as it stands right now. But I just don't understand their thinking. Like Nick said, it's like they're trying to execute 2 completely different strategies concurrently. Makes no sense.
If they'd have taken Latu or even Byron Murphy, like even though that Murphy
what about
now would have been a
trading
reach,
back,
but
picking up a second for that spot? Because people were coming for quarterbacks
we would have
hard.
We would have hated that.
It would have crushed us. They would have got who knows?
For the record, I love the Falcons draft
Me
because
too.
it's completely fucking inept. And Terry Fontenot is a double agent, and nobody can convince me otherwise.
Right. So on the quarterback train, it was interesting to note that Rattler was the first QB taken after Bo Nix.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of great potentially if Rattler pans out for us in a good way, whether it's coming in for Carr getting injured or whether it's Carr having one more season and Rattler's an heir apparent, just blows the roof off, whatever.
3
But
years from now.
The
Great.
potential
Whatever.
of Rattler having a better pro career than Bo Nix, who Sean Payton picked with the 12th pick. I love that, even that possibility being out there.
Look, I don't love Bo Nix, and I honestly believe Rattler and Bo Nix are in that same crowd.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
After Rattler, who was the next pick? Was it Bub?
Let's go with Bub Means.
Yeah, I love it. we thought our chances of getting a wide receiver that could contribute were kind of gone in the 4th round at minimum. But when you look at this guy's tape, I mean, he's a baller. He goes and high points the ball. He's got good size,
he's big,
good
he's
height,
not
weight.
slow.
Let's see. So he's showing 6'1", 222 is what he's listed at on the Saints website. So that's thick. That's good size.
4'4"?
I think he ran a 4.43.
Yeah.
His
Oh,
RAS
did
is
he?
like
I thought it was-
9.83.
Oh, I thought he was like 4.5. He was 4.43.
I know, he's 4'4".
No, 4.43.
Yeah.
So
He can move.
He can move. Now his production wasn't there, but that's more a product of the Pittsburgh team and the quarterback situation and all of that. But the biggest thing with him, he's talked about in his interview. He's all about whatever he has to do. Because you realize, I don't know if you noticed, he was recruited as a cornerback. Moved to wide receiver. So he was originally at Tennessee, I believe, and ended up at Louisiana Tech, and then ended up in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh was his 3rd stop.
But he'll play anywhere, which says special teamer, special teamer. At worst, that's what you're getting out of him. If you get anything in the receiving game, great.
He's got a roster spot at a minimum.
Yeah, just from the special teams contributions.
So I love that pick, and again, it's another one that we stayed pat in the 5th round because before the draft, I was all for I know we gave up one of our 5th round picks, but I was all for giving giving up 2, 3, whatever it takes to get back into the 3rd or 4th. We didn't do that, thankfully. Now, in hindsight, you can say thankfully, but he's one of these guys that we kind of let come to us and looks like a solid player, especially for the 5th round.
Yeah. So the next 5th round pick was Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas, 6'3", 242, good size. By all accounts, was one of the leaders on that Texas defense.
Yep.
Where was it? Well, a lot of people say he led the resurgence of Texas.
Yeah,
It was leadership. But
He
where
led
was
the
he
team in-
projected?
I don't know where he was projected.
Third, fourth.
Third,
in that
because
range.
he was a tackle machine there.
Yeah.
You would think he would have been a little
I
higher.
don't think he has great measurables as far as speed, but
He's one that let's see. They said he's good in open field tackling, but they said he had trouble shedding blocks when the O-line come to the second level.
Yeah.
So that's something he could work on. Something a good linebackers coach can help him through. Because his size is there. There's no that makes sense for guys like Debo, who came out of LSU undersized and all these 215 pound linebackers.
Anthony had good size, bro.
Well, I thought he was 230. No, how big was he?
He was big enough, but
He was big enough.
But these
He was
undersized,
bad enough. That's
but
what he was.
the modern speedy sub 220 linebackers that exist these days, if someone says that dude has trouble getting off of blocks by O linemen, it's well, he's always gonna have trouble. He doesn't weigh more than 220 pounds.
Too small.
But a guy with Ford, he's 240. He's got good height, decent height, and when you watch him on film, he just pops. He just looks like he's angry. I love that.
I love the leadership aspect that they talk about with him. And that, look, maybe that's the guy you put him behind DeMario. And look, we're all hoping DeMario plays until he's 50, like he's talked about, but the chances of that are pretty slim. So have him sit behind, have him sit behind DeMario, pick up his habits. DeMario will have that dude right and tight. And if he's already got the character where he's a locker room leader, he's leading the resurgence, like Nick said, of Texas. That's a good recipe, man. Putting those two together, I'd put his locker right next to DeMario.
Absolutely.
Does he definitely make the roster with our current linebacker situation?
Our linebacker situation
pretty stacked all of a sudden, though.
I mean,
is it?
Sewell last year, right?
Well, you would think
Sewell's coming off that big injury, though, the knee
But
injury.
then you signed Gay. You had DeMario and Werner.
So you got DeMario. So DeMario in the middle. Ford, I would assume, stays in the middle. Then you got Werner and Gay fighting it out. Who's your other one?
Sewell.
Sewell's coming off that injury, man, and he was a backup to Werner. So,
But what I'm saying
I think
is
they like him enough to keep him.
They like him.
no,
a lot.
they'll keep him.
Yeah.
But does he make the roster keeping 6? Are we keeping 6? Do you think, or is this going to be a fight for him to practice squad, or have to maybe Sewell's not ready and he needs longer on IR?
I could see them giving him every chance to make it because he's probably going to be a core special teamer as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's another one of these guys that was all conference. It's the thing I like, the common theme of all of our picks. I think the only two guys that didn't have some kind of sure bet minimum all conference accolade were Rattler and Bub. Bub means it was ACC honorable mention. Yeah. Everybody else was either first team all conference, or if they weren't first team all Americans, they were third team all Americans. I'm pretty sure this guy was that Ford was a third team all American.
Yeah,
first team all conference Big
player.
12. He had 101 tackles this past year, 119 the year before that.
He's a player.
he's an interception guy from the middle, which that shows.
Yeah, he does
that
have a
he's
decent amount of picks.
He's instinctive as a linebacker. So huge upside again for a 5th round pick.
It's a great 5th round pick.
Back to value. He's not just a nobody.
Yeah.
And then I think our last were the 2 picks after him.
We had 2 more picks. The next one was Christian Boyd, defensive tackle.
Nose tackle.
And he's another guy.
Out of Northern Iowa. He's going to be, I'm telling you right now.
Good size, production at his level, 6'2", 320.
Yeah.
Some people called him a run stuffer, but he's sneaky at getting into the backfield if you look at his stats.
He's primarily a run stuffer, though, because he had the highest run stuffing grade in college football last year at the defensive tackle
The
spot,
easiest thing to project for him is run stuffing, but if you look at his production at the FCS level, he was getting into the backfield, TFLs. He had a few more sacks than you would think a defensive lineman would have. But yet again, another guy who was first-team all-conference.
That's also a need. Let's be honest.
He strikes me as a 1-for-1 Malcolm Roach replacement.
Yeah.
Because Roach was undrafted. Remember that.
Yeah.
So.
And it would be – and he was another guy who was projected to be potentially like a 4th rounder, even 3rd, that falls to the 5th. So
nose tackles always fall.
Value, production, that's all there. Again, we're talking about a guy we did not trade up for.
We sucked against the run. They did something about it with a guy that fell. Again, that's kind of how I like the way when they approach it that way. I like it way better than.
Yeah, and I would say ignore his draft position. Ignore the fact that he's a 6th-round pick. Like, don't look at it and go, "Oh, he's a 6th-round pick.
Well, he's
not going to contribute." Like, to me, this kid he's going to be on the team.
Yeah, in terms of evaluating a draft,
and he's going to play rotation minutes.
Yeah, in terms of evaluating a draft in a bubble, you look at picks, but then when you think of how is this going to play out for our team, it's kind of like going from regular season to the playoffs. Like your record's 0-0 now.
Yeah,
the guy who is
it doesn't matter how you got there.
Yeah, the guy who's picked in the 5th round is going to compete just as much as the guy who used to play and got picked in the first
like Nick
round.
said, there's a clear path for him.
Yeah.
Being that he is primarily a run-stuffing defensive tackle, there is a clear path for him to contribute big time this year.
Yeah.
Last pick, Josiah Ezerum, offensive tackle out of Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's like the common theme of these last 2 picks, and then including Rattlers, you're taking a chance on him. He's got good size.
This one's more developmental.
Yeah, he's got good size, so you're taking a chance.
He's got great size. His arms are like...
He's like 35.5-inch arms. You're taking a chance that this guy could come with do well with good coaching. And
I don't like the phrasing of chance. Like, I feel like Rattler, you're taking a chance. With this kid, this is more like you're saying, you know what, this is a big just lump of clay that needs to be molded. We're going to take him and he's going to be on the practice squad this year. There's no way this kid makes the team. Like, he'll be on the practice squad this year, and he's just going to need coaching.
Yeah.
And then hopefully by year 2, what's his name? Jordan Mailata for the Eagles. Yeah. He came in as a rugby player, had never played football in his life. They taught him how to play.
Right.
But he's just this huge physical freak. This is the same thing here.
Yeah.
And what I liked is that Jari Evans actually
coached him in the East-West Shrine game.
Yeah.
And
Jari obviously is a coach for us on the offensive line. So.
And I think my first inclination and tendency, and maybe a lot of other fans, is whenever we draft a tackle is, can he play left tackle? Can he play left tackle because of the situation? But this guy did play right tackle in college. Granted, he
was all over the place.
But he played at FCS school, so
I think he was right tackle, left tackle, and left guard.
Could part of that mold of clay process be, getting used to a different side of the ball? Sure. Like, that would be nice.
And that is a position that often hits later in the draft too. So, if he's got ability and he's willing to be coached, I mean, even Jari and Nick, I mean, it was earlier than this, but still, but still mid to late round picks.
From small schools.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry. Nick's was from Nebraska. But Jari was small school.
Yeah. They were a small school at the time.
Like a small school, yeah. Yeah, and this is another guy who earned his all-conference and third-team All-American FCS honors, and so the production's there. He played well.
The fact that Jari coached him in the bowl game, that stands out to me because that means he wanted them to bring. He saw something. So
yeah, I'll trust that man's evaluation over
he's a future
anybody
Hall of
else.
Famer,
This year he better be. This year.
As far as the undrafted guys, anybody jump out to you this year?
I think the tight end's an easy one. Holker.
Oh man, he looks fun, huh?
The dude that mistakenly caught 2 balls at the combine.
Yeah.
In the gauntlet drill, I was kind of confused as to how that happened, but then I listened to it with audio, and it was like he thought the second to last ball was the one where you catch it and run, and then all of a sudden he sees another ball coming at him, and he's like, "Oh shit!" So he just doesn't even drop the first ball and catches the second one with one hand and keeps running. So he's the only guy in the gauntlet drill running with 2 balls in his hand. Like,
there was that video. I think it was his video. One of his catches on the sidelines was crazy.
Yeah,
he's got good hands, man.
I saw one tweet was kind of funny. It was like, just all you got to do is like, give that dude a buzz cut, shave off the beard, and he looks like the boyfriend of a former country singer turned pop star.
I like the long hair, and look, whoever can get Juwan Johnson the fuck off the team and take minutes away from him, I'm good with. So
Yeah.
I'm pulling for him. He's the early
Now, I think
horse in the race.
there's one UDFA that, based on your pre-draft stuff, you should like. We got an Aussie punter.
Yeah, we did. Not the one I was
What's his
thinking
name?
about. but-
Hayball or something?
Back to the well.
nothing like the Vanderbilt punter to make you excited as for the UDFA haul.
Yeah, his name's Matthew Hayball.
Hayball.
So, yeah, look, whatever. we know that our punter last year was not very good. So
Yeah.
if he's an Australian-style kicker, maybe he can do the same shit that what's his name was doing, and maybe he can do it better.
Yeah.
I do like. I want to shout out Sincere Hainsworth, the center from Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he been reading about him all year. He's a really good player. Was a starter for a few years. A little undersized, but you know that's fine at center. You can be a little smaller. He's got the leverage. I think he was a former wrestler in high school, so I'm excited to watch. And we do need a backup center. We don't have one.
Yeah.
You know, Ruiz is the
He's playing guard, right?
Yeah, you would slide him over to
Yeah.
if anything were to happen to McCoy. So
And there's a guy on who I saw we signed. I don't think is on the first list. Defensive end out of Arkansas looks intriguing.
Yeah, I saw
Jeff
that.
Code or something like that.
Yeah, that just
6'3",
happened.
266, just team captain from Arkansas. Just bull rushed the shit out of some dude in I think the East-West practice I saw a video of. And look, our UDFA haul proved that we did not leave this draft without getting a defensive end named Latu. Thanks to our
close
signing.
enough, right?
You know, the draft did not end with the Saints getting an end named Latu. This one from Oklahoma State. Don't know if there's any relation, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, I know Nick's big on the wide receiver, the white guy out of Slippery Rock,
Yeah, let's just Slippery Rock. I mean, you got to root for
Sheets.
that guy.
Kyle Sheets.
Sheets from
No
Slippery
clue
Rock.
who he is, but Slippery Rock.
I didn't even know there was a
so-
school named Slippery Rock before this. I saw people were high on the Yale kid.
Oh yeah, as a returner, he had I want to say 3 touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
Small guy, but hey,
Yeah.
fast. And look, we do great at identifying undrafted free agent kick returner, punt returners.
Yeah.
Deontay Harris or Deontay Hardy, whatever name he's going by these days. Rashid Shaheed. You know, we've
Yeah.
always done a good job with that. So with the new, I guess we do need to see the new kickoff system in effect before we can really.
I think keyword is C because that thing
See it,
sounds like
because-
it's got
yeah.
all kinds of weird shit going on. I mean, because you can even get the ball back to the 40 if your kick doesn't go past the 20 or something. Like if it doesn't carry in the, because somebody said, what about line drive kicks? And I heard Rizzy on the radio saying that, people think that that's a thing, but you can't really line drive it because if your ball hits the ground before the 20-yard line, then it comes back to the 40.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
It's like,
My only issue with it is it's taken away from the prime time to run to the bar and get a drink when you're at the Superdome.
because something could happen.
Because something now, it's going to be actually interesting now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you'll still have your long post-score TV timeouts.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, let's wrap it up with this. Give the draft a grade. Obviously, this is a preliminary grade, you know, and to be real, most people should just say incomplete. But if you had to
Right.
assign a letter grade, what would you say?
Well, most people could say incomplete, but I think Nick has like a whole point system he uses, so maybe he
Probably.
with his website, overthecot.com.
Yeah.
You know.
And y'all give Nick his burner account a follow. That's at Jason_OTC. We figured that out
It
earlier.
makes some valid points.
That's a debate for the next episode. Maybe we'll get Romans take not next episode, but we'll have him on soon here. But I think grade, I got to go with A. That's a high grade for a draft. I mean, B+ would be the lowest though. I think A because we, like I said, let the draft come to us. Didn't trade away anything from the future. The high picks we got, first 2 were positions of need, and then the guys in the later rounds were appropriate for those picks.
Well, the second one was in a position of need.
It
corner.
was.
Well,
Not this year.
You always
Not this
need,
year.
You always need them. Yeah. How
I would
many-
say I'm going to grade the approach an A because we stayed out of our own way for the first time in what seems like forever.
Yeah.
So I like that. But the truth is, we have no idea.
Yeah.
Especially, those 5th to 7th round picks. Like I said, if one of those becomes a big contributor, you hit a home run. If you just hit one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the approach, I like how they did it. They didn't shy away from taking a quarterback because the value was there when maybe there were more positions of need still there. I prefer that approach, especially in the later rounds. Just take the best player and hope you hit on the player and trust your process. The first pick, I think, was absolutely mandatory, so I'm going to give that an A. And, still work to be done there, of course. And I don't have a problem with Kool-Aid at all, but just because I always kind of felt he was a first-round pick. Going into the draft, I still felt he was probably a first-round pick. So I can't knock that at all, even though, again, maybe not the biggest position of need as we stand today, but you're one injury away from that being a position of need.
Exactly.
So, take the best player, and they did. So
Yeah, I like what Nick said. I'm going to go ahead and grade the approach more than anything else, and I give the approach an A+.
Yeah.
Because for the first
That's
time
fair.
in forever, they exercised restraint. They didn't do anything stupid. They didn't mortgage any future picks. And I'll be honest with you, looking at the team after the draft, as opposed to looking at it before the draft, I feel a hell of a lot better about the long-term direction of the team because this offseason they've exercised restraint with the salary cap. They didn't renegotiate Taysom, they didn't renegotiate Kamara, they did, with Pete, all this. They're getting the bad contracts off the books while doing a soft reset of the cap, getting it in order, and they didn't give anyone a long-term contract. Chase Young is basically a one-year deal.
Yep.
Willie Gay is basically a one-year deal. There's nobody that they brought in. It's like everybody's on one-year deals to where they can hit eject if they need to. So the approach itself, I'm giving an A+. But as far as, the players we drafted, my only switch would have been I would have picked Malachi Corley as opposed to Kool-Aid. Just because I really do think we need some kind of a tone setter on offense, whether it's wide receiver. We just need somebody who's gonna be a tough threat. We got a bunch of finesse guys.
So I think Corley was really the only receiver left.
He was like the only one left at that. Well, I think Adonai Mitchell might, or did he go at that? I don't remember.
I want to say AD went ahead of us.
I think he did,
but I don't know.
Corley was there though.
But I don't know that AD's amazing. I don't know that he fits because he's really good, high point, possessive guy, but he's a little more. He's kind of like Olave in terms of being slight. Like he's not huge.
He's 6'3", bro.
No, he's like 6'2", but he's not very thick. He's a skinny dude.
He's thicker than Olave. Olave is like 180 pounds soaking wet.
Like proportionally, but he's not like that thick dude. Like Bub.
It's
he's
like
not Bub Means or.
It's like we covered
Corley
on the
type.
pre-draft episode. Like, give me a tough, physical tone setter on offense because we don't have it.
Well,
we just don't have it.
At least it seems like we got that with Bub Mean. I mean, maybe not to the degree you want, but.
Bub Means, to me, is going to be a really good special
not a good
teamer.
enough player to say that.
He's not a good enough player to say this.
Yeah, he's still a fifth round.
He's a fifth-round pick.
He's still a fifth-round pick.
Corley is a second-round pick who is going to come in and contribute. The Jets have him. I promise you that dude's going to put up numbers this year.
I think once if this coming year plays out anything like last year did on the defensive backfield where like a couple guys go down any given week.
Yeah. Look, and again, I do like the Kool-Aid pick.
Kool-Aid's going to come in handy.
All I'm going to say, and this is the last thing I'm going to say on it, I promise you, Kyle Brandt's Angry Runs is going to feature one or two from Kool-Aid this year. As a wide receiver.
Yeah.
As a wide receiver, which you don't see often.
I don't disagree on that. But, no, I think, good grade, good draft.
Yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for listening to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. Who dat?
Boom.